To go into a little more detail, I guess, about the objectives and what activities we are trying to promote through each of the objectives. I mean, Objective 1 really does focus there on the bread and butter of why we believe a program like this is in the interests of sports, and that is to increase the regular participation of people throughout the Pacific, including people with a disability, in quality sport activities. Now, I think it's crucial to highlight at this stage that no elite level sport activities are to be funded through this program. It is an obvious focus that community-based mass participation programs are what we are trying to support through this program. Obviously, also under this sort of objective, we're trying to support capacity development activities, which will help national federations deliver these sorts of programs, including disability sports programs, at a quality that we feel is safe and is inclusive and is meeting the objectives of the program. Secondly, in terms of non-communicable diseases, and these diseases, it's worth highlighting, include diseases such as diabetes, heart disease and cancer. There are 4 major risk factors for these NCDs, and that is unhealthy diet, smoking, excessive alcohol and physical inactivity. I think under this objective, what we're trying to encourage sports to do is provide an opportunity to increase the rates of physical activity in target groups in the Pacific, and also to expose participants to positive messages about maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Now, at this stage, I think it's very much worth highlighting, and it's been a lesson through, I guess, the first phase of PSP, is that we're not asking sports to develop their own messages around health. We want these messages to be developed through relevant health authorities and delivered in a coordinated manner across all sports within specific countries. So, like I said, we don't want sports developing their own messages, but instead pushing messages in a unified manner that are directed through relevant health authorities. And the ASC has acknowledged that it has a real role to play in brokering those relationships with health authorities and with broader development partners in these countries, and coordinating these arrangements. In some cases, the ASC, through the country programs, has existing networks that we're very keen to ensure that we can utilise through these sorts of processes, but we're also aware where those networks don't exist. The ASC has a crucial role to play in developing those networks and connecting sports with those broader health-based development partners. I think likewise, in terms of disability, again, a crucial part of how we pursue this sort of objective is to link relevant in-country organisations responsible for delivering disability services and advocacy as well with sports. And again, the ASC has that real role to play. But to drill down into the detail of this objective, the purpose behind it, and I think Rob touched on it earlier, is to improve how people with disability think and feel about themselves, but also more broadly reducing barriers to inclusion, including accessibility, negative attitudes, stigma and discrimination. So again, in some cases we have existing networks within these countries, and we're very keen to use those where we can, and where they don't exist, the ASC wants to put itself into that position where they can broker those arrangements between sports and these sorts of broader development partners. To touch on some of the lessons learnt through the first phase, and as I've already made clear, it's first and foremost, I think the ASC has identified that it needs to play a role in coordinating the interaction between sports and development partners in these countries, and so that's a crucial step in the right direction, I think, through the second phase of this program, that those activities be better coordinated. I guess, what does that mean in terms of applications that sports will be making? I think what we want to see in applications is evidence of these kinds of organisational relationships where they may exist already for sports, But obviously we want to see a willingness to make these connections in the future as well. So I think that's worth highlighting, that in terms of how that translates into your applications. I think a willingness to engage with broader partners outside of sport as well as inside sport will benefit, I think, applications. Secondly, I think a big lesson that we've learned is that programs have the greatest impact when they are targeted. And when I say targeted, I mean targeted in what programs are trying to achieve, targeted in terms of who the beneficiaries are, and targeted in terms of where those beneficiaries are. So I think there's been some good examples highlighted, perhaps the Tonga netball situation, but also in Vanuatu we've had a good example of an island cricket program which targeted middle-aged women as well. And so that was a small project. It was operated initially as a pilot project, and it was a scalable project, and from there it is likely to expand, and this year it is expanding into other communities. But that's a good example, I think, of a small project which knew what it was trying to achieve, who its intended audience was, and where they were. And so from there we got some really good outcomes, and some of those better stories to tell that Rob alluded to, that AusAid are really keen to hear, those sort of human interest stories that really do tell or really do explain how the impacts of the program are having a positive influence on communities. I think the idea also of targeting activity, this sort of focus, it does make measuring and indicating the impacts of the program much easier, and that's something that we're far more conscious of these days as we move into this second phase. On the Pacific Sports Partnerships website there, we've set up a tab of current achievements, and I think those current achievements really highlight a lot of the best case sort of situations that we've seen evolve through the first phase of the Pacific Sports Partnership. So I encourage you to check those out if you are looking to learn a bit more about what has been undertaken through the first phase and what we've seen work really well. That brings me to a close, and I think our presentations for the time being to a close. I'd encourage you, for more information, to contact myself directly, Nick Cassidy, or Martin, and that we have established a new email address that you're welcome to use as well, pspinfo@ausport.gov.au. And as I said, the website's there as well, and obviously all the paperwork, the documentation, all that is available through that website.